I've got a couple of pieces of metal here. One's real thin rectangular tube, and this is the measurement in inches, 0.056, and then a piece of plate, 0.113 in inches. Let's show millimeters here. About 3 millimeter and 1.5 millimeter almost. And this is in a project that I'm working on right now. I'm building a welding table using this thin steel tubing. And the trick is going to be, when I put the feet on it, welding thick to thin. So about double the thickness of the plate on the bottom to the tubing itself. So I'm going to test out a few theories on this and a couple techniques in order to do this with the gasless flux core wire. So normally you would point into the joint 45 degrees and aim right for the joint of the two metals. But if I do that, I'll end up burning through this thin steel tubing. So I want to point my arc toward the thicker piece, the base material, and I'm going to start away from it a little bit, watch it build a puddle, and then just barely wash that puddle into the upright piece of thin tubing and see if I can't get a good weld across there without burning through this tubing. I'm going to set the welder for this thicker material, which is just about 1/8 of an inch thick. Set my welder for that with this gasless flux core wire, and then just run that bead across there and try to incorporate. So let me get set up for that and we'll show you how it goes. For those of you wanting to do a project where you're doing thick metal to thin metal, welding it together with flux core wire, maybe this will help you out. I need to practice on this before I actually use my welding table project. But let's set it up and we'll see what happens. I've got my machine set for this flux core wire with what the instruction manual calls for 17 volts and 340 inches per minute, or 8.5 meters per minute. Set for the thickest bottom part, and let's run this bead and see if I can stick it. Of course we'll tack it first and then weld it. That looks like it worked pretty good. I think it was a little bit hot, so I'm going to let that cool a little bit, flip it around. I'm going to drop my settings down. I'll just drop down to the next setting. I've dropped the volts down to 15.5, and I'm at 300 inches per minute, or 7.5 meters per minute, thick to thin, with flux core wire. Well, the temperature and the settings look better, but at that heat setting I wasn't close enough to actually incorporate the thin rectangular tube. I'll set up a new one and we'll try it again. This time I'm going to use a little bit different technique. I'm still going to point most of the heat toward the base, but then I'm going to wash, little zigzag to wash it up on the side of the thin steel tube. See if I can't get a good weld across there. So those are the settings I'm going to use. About 15.5 bolts and about 250 or 300 inches per minute, or on this machine 8.0 meters per minute. Let me get another piece of steel and I'll try a hole all the way around one. We'll see what that looks like. So there you go. Just a little bit of practice, trial and error with the settings. And you can get a pretty good weld, welding thick to thin steel with flux core wire. That'll work for sure. Leave your questions, comments in the description, and we'll see you on the next video.